Hey there! This is my third tutorial, I think, about how to use Soundation. We're talking about the stretching tool, to be more general there. Stretching tool looks like this guy. You've got a couple options. You can time stretch and pitch stretch. Now, I have loaded in here a one shot, which is just a sound that only lasts for it's once. It's not a loop. It's not a repeated pattern. So it sounds like this. Just a bass drum sound there, nothing too crazy. Nothing too crazy. So if I go to my stretching tool and I choose the time stretch, it will keep the same pitch. Boom, boom. It's that same sound, but it's going to like grainify it. You see how it gets a little bit grainy there? And you can really see how it kind of starts to grain. I've stretched it super far so that you can really hear the difference. So there you go. That's what happens when you time stretch something. If you pitch stretch it, it'll get a lot lower. You'll hear it. You actually can't even hear it now. It's too low. So let me get rid of this and go with a snare drum sample, something a little easier to hear. I'll drop it in, grab my pitch stretch tool. So you hear how it's a lot lower now. If I take the same sample and time stretch it, just gets grainy, kind of like if you zoom in too far on a pixely picture. That's what happens. Okay, that can be used for a couple of things. Actually, let me put the snare drum back here. Woo! One thing you can't do while in this, you can't crop or trim. So I go back to my mouse tool here and I just trim off all the excess, right click and reverse. Check out what happens now. I've got this cool little fade in idea. If I was to do that with my bass drum, let me get rid of my snare drum sample here, put it back at the beginning. Let me go to stretch, pitch stretch. Actually, let's go to time stretch. Okay. And suddenly I have this longer idea. If I trim off this little nub here, then stretch it again to the full length to fit it to the song, I can reverse it. And suddenly I have this cool fade in. Super cool. You hear that kind of a sound a lot in trailer music. Where was I going with that? Yeah, so let's say I have this loop now. So I've got this loop. It's not in time with my original song. If I put on the metronome here and play them, the metronome and my loop are not in the same thing. If you right click on it, you've got a couple of options. You could time stretch it or pitch stretch it to fit the song tempo. So this is really helpful. I'm going to go ahead and use time stretch, and you see how it shrunk it a little bit? It shrunk it to fit the song tempo. So now it's at the same speed. It's going 120 beats per second, per minute rather. If I was to take my stretching tool and shrink it to half the size, it would then be going twice as fast. Alright, something you need to know about Midi clips. If I drop in just these two chords, super cool. Stretching, time stretching and pitch stretching makes no difference for MIDI. Because MIDI is like music notes. It's like telling somebody to play sheet music. If I say to play a whole note versus playing a half note, all I've done is change how long the sound lasts. I haven't actually changed what note they should play. So that's how you use the stretching tool in Soundation. How do I stop this darn video? Stop the movie.